Good morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always, told out of voice of radio, so today we need to take a little bit of a look at the top 10 most expensive cards from Celebrations. And yes, we are going to be mixing in both the regular set, all 25 cards, and the Classic Collection, I believe it's officially called, which again is 25 cards, although I don't think it's going to be a massive surprise to you guys to learn that actually, you know what, the Classic Collection is kind of overtaking here just a little bit. Not entirely though, just a little bit. So, let's start off at number 10 with Birthday Pikachu. Now, what's great about this set, at least from my point of view, these cards have gone like super cheap. There's two cards very obviously at the top, really you could argue one, and then maybe a third, maybe a fourth, but we're not going to hit above $10 until we get to number 4 on this list. So Birthday Pikachu's coming in at $4, I'm checking eBay here, I'm checking TCG Player, I'm having a look around trying to break ties, and quite frankly, a lot of these cards have just absolutely plummeted in value. There are, one of my favourite cards, in fact my actual favourite card ever, is the Classic Collection Donphan. I adore that card. Well, Donphan is my favourite card ever, but it was reprinted in the Classic Collection, obviously. Has it got $1 card? Something like Flying Pikachu, really good card. Won the World Championships, absolutely phenomenal. $2 card. There are so many cards and Celebrations that have just absolutely plummeted in value, and I think this is a good thing, ladies and gentlemen. I think this is a very good thing indeed. There's only 25 cards in the main collection, and there's only 25 cards in the Classic Collection, so this should not have been some ridiculously expensive set. I love this. As for why Birthday Pikachu comes in at number 10, I mean, it's Pikachu, which is great. But there's also a real move towards, except for the obvious ones, the more recent cards in the Classic Collection have actually ended up being the more expensive of them. Which is, I think, recency bias at play. This is a card that a lot of us remember from our childhood, but it was perceived as quite an easy to pull card, although I'm sure it wasn't that easy compared to the other Classic Collection cards. And it's just a Pikachu, it's not an EX or a GX or any of that, so that's why it comes in at number 10. In at number 9, we've got XERNEAS EX, $4, and this is one of those cards that I have argued probably shouldn't have been in the set. Now, the reason it's in the set, we're fairly sure, is because they wanted to have a Fairy-type Pokemon in the Classic Collection, which would be a way better argument if they had a Dragon-type Pokemon in the Classic Collection, but they don't. I don't know, if I'm honest with you. Is XERNEAS really that popular? Is the card really that fondly remembered? I don't think so. I'll be honest with you, I'm not sure this entirely deserves its place on the list. I'm sorry. But in at number 8, we've got Tapu Lele, and this is the part of the list where it all starts making sense. And to be fair, right, 9 and 10 I gave you, but there's plenty of other Pokemon. Venusaur's basically a $4 card, Mew EX is basically a $4 card, Gardevoir EX Delta is basically a $4 card. So I've gone and given you, at the time of recording, the cards that kind of break the tie, looking around everywhere trying to see which are the most valuable. But it is very much worth bearing in mind that 9 and 10 on this list were very, very close to just being different cards, honestly. I hope that makes sense. But number 8 is where we really get into it. Tapu Lele is about a $5 card, but this one is pretty understandable. It's only a Gen 7 card, it's quite a recent card, and it is a card that was played in every deck, because the annoyingly awesome Wonder Tag ability that you just go and grab a supporter card from your deck. And there are so many people that remember this card that are still playing now, far more so than something like Mew EX, for instance, which was a phenomenal card, won the World Championships, but how many people playing nowadays were really playing back then? Some, but compared to the amount of people playing when Tapu Lele was around, very, very low, I would argue. In at number 7, we've got Blastoise, and this is a pretty obvious one. It's one of the original trio. Now, initially, this was one of the most sought-after cards. You know, if we go back to the early days of the Celebrations era, this was one of the ones people really wanted to pull. Not quite so nowadays, but it is still Blastoise, and everybody loves Blastoise. And people that were playing back in the base set day will remember this as a very cool, very good card. So Blastoise, it's one of the original trio. It gets in at number 7. And once again, shout out to Venusaur, who did not make the list. In at number 6, we've got Mewtwo. And here we got a $9 card, so we've at least jumped up a little bit from the first 4. This is where we start to see a little bit of separation. And Mewtwo, I mean, firstly, it's Mewtwo, right? Everybody loves Mewtwo. And secondly, this is another one of those that isn't that old. Still legal and expanded. Now, don't get me wrong, we're talking the kind of tail end of Gen 5, so it's not exactly a hugely recent card, but it's more recent than a lot of the cheaper ones. And we all remember how good Mewtwo was. Mewtwo, I suppose I can put it this way. Mewtwo was a phenomenal, overpowering deck in the age where deck lists were being readily shared online and people were sharing tournament results. Mew wasn't. When Mew was a really good deck destroying everything, we didn't have deck lists being shared and tournament reports being written like they are nowadays. It's not to say none of them were out there, but it is to say that how it was then is very, very different to how it is now. But when Mewtwo came out, it was kind of like it is now. Mewtwo was in the age of tournament reports and deck lists being shared online. I wrote an article for 6 prizes called I've Got More Mewtwo Than You. It's an article about how I bubbled at the biggest tournament in Europe, 33rd, same number of points as, well, honestly, like 20 other people who did cart, which, you know, still bitter about that. But that was about how I did so well because I literally just had more Mewtwo than my opponent. It was a weird tournament that happened 11 days after Mewtwo was released and Mewtwo was legal. Wouldn't happen nowadays, but I had 3 Mewtwo in that tournament and it legit gave me a huge advantage. That's why people remember Mewtwo so much more fondly. And then we've got a very similar thing going on at number 5 with Rayquaza, a $10 card, ever so slightly ahead of Mewtwo here. And this is very much a case of people love Rayquaza, it's a very popular Pokemon. And it's from the age where it was really, really good and everyone was sharing deck lists and writing tournament reports. People remember Mega Rayquaza EX, and that's why it comes in at number 5. Now, in at number 4, we've got Shining Magikarp. We've jumped up to about a $15 card here, so another little bit of a jump. And this one, this is a little bit of an anomaly in the top 10. This one is a little bit harder to explain, because don't get me wrong, it's nominally the first Shining card. And Magikarp is a moderately popular Pokemon. It's been around forever. It's been a fun little meme. And it is a very beautiful card. But is Shining Magikarp really that much more iconic than Birthday Pikachu or Venusaur? One of my theories as to why Shining Magikarp has jumped up here is because in the early days of Celebrations, an awful lot of people were saying, oh mate, Shining Magikarp, that was really rare, the pull rate's really low. And I don't believe it is, incidentally. I'm sure what they actually did was print pretty much exactly the same number of all of them, but I believe this is a perceived rarity thing because, sure, this card is cool, but like we've seen, the top of this list is really kind of overrun by newer cards and more iconic cards, and I'm not sure Shining Magikarp falls into either of them. Yell at me in the comments, of course, if you think I'm wrong. In at number 3, we've got Umbreon Star, and this is an older card, but there are 2 things at play here. Firstly, this is a borderline mythical card. For those of you that don't know the story, there used to be, when you went to tournaments, little tournaments, leagues, etc., leagues, not tournaments, you would be able to get pop packs. You played a few games, filled in a little card, and when you got a certain number of stamps on your card, you would get a pop pack. And in Pop 5, they had Umbreon and Espeon Star that were only in the pop packs, and the pull rates were hilariously low, and yeah, that's basically how we ended up with this mythical card. Plus, it's Umbreon, and like I've told you a few times on this channel, if you're looking at the most valuable card in the Sword and Shield area, that you can just pull from a pack, it's the alternate art Umbreon V Max. So the fact that it's Umbreon and the fact that it's a, almost mythical card at this stage because of how ridiculously difficult it was to get hold of, that puts it in at number 3. In at number 2, we've actually got a card from the main celebration set, which obviously means it's Mew. And shout out to the very, very, very lovely person at the World Championships who came up to me randomly and went, "Hey, so I heard in one of your videos this was the only card you needed from celebrations, so my friend got you a Mew." It was really, really sweet of them. Now, this is about a $30 card-ish, although $30 is on the lower end, I should warn ya. And essentially what we've got here is by far the hardest card to pull from the main set of celebrations. I pulled 3 play sets of the full art Professor Oak without pulling one of these. Although having said that, the lovely Joe from Cerebi pulled a couple of Mew without pulling any Professor's Research, so I don't know. But I do believe this was by far the rarest card in the main celebration set, and it's playable to boot, and it's a Mew, so that puts it in at number 2. And then obviously number 1 is Charizard. And it's not even close. This is the best I can make it. It's about a $70 card. $70 seems about right for this card. It does fluctuate around, but $70 seems about fair. And it's because it's Charizard. If you're looking for iconic cards in the history of the Pokemon trading card game, yeah, there's no argument. It's base set Charizard. And it's not even close. It's not like, oh, there's Charizard. No. The only really iconic card, the only one that's even close here, well, there isn't anything that's really close. The point is, the only one that's in the conversation is Charizard. It's ridiculous, ladies and gentlemen. It is the iconic card, the original card, etc., etc., etc. So, yeah, they reprinted it, but they reprinted it all fancy. I mean, come on, ladies and gentlemen. This was always going to be number 1. You can look at this list on release, and this was number 1. You can look at this list in a decade time, and this will be number 1. This, in terms of celebrations, will always be number 1, because this is the most iconic card in the history of Pokemon, and they just reprinted it looking all awesome. Yeah. This was always going to be the case, ladies and gentlemen. This was always going to be the case. Right. There we go, ladies and gentlemen. That's what you need to know, and now it's over to you guys. Tell me which of these cards you pulled. Tell me which of these you picked up. Tell me anything you want to tell me in the comment section. Go nuts. Be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWasi. That's where we talk Pokemon and card games and Pokemon card games and all kinds of fun things. And please do consider checking out patreon.com/PTCG Radio, where you can support the channel, get some weekly bonus pods to answer all of your questions, join a Discord to chat with us, and of course get shout-outs on these videos, like the lovely Evan Parker, who has been a supporter of ours for a couple of months and is a very lovely person. So thank you for the support, and thank you for being a very lovely person. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.